Hey everybody, a bit of an unusual one. So today we're going to take a look at the creation of quizzes. And we don't really do a lot of content for teachers on this channel, but I thought, this is an interesting little niche request that occasionally we come across. And I thought, why not do a quick little video for this? So the idea is that you get a text, big text, let's say the US Constitution. And you want to be able to create a quick little pop quiz from it for your students. So yeah, with the existence of things like Document, with Doc Parser, and with ChatGPT, the whole thing is a bit of a doddle to set up. If you're new here, my name is Alex, and this is what we do here on this channel. We create funky little automations using typically Airtable and Make.com. And yeah, today is no different. So yeah, let's jump in. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, do subscribe to the channel now so that you don't miss any new uploads. Let's get stuck in. Okay, so in our typical fashion, let's first take a look at how the system works. Essentially, we have our document, the US Constitution, right? And what we will do next, I'm gonna clear all of this out. And all you have to do is just basically press process doc. And what this will do, it will, and let me just clear all the questions as well. What this will do behind the scenes, it will process our document. It will then extract all the text. And then using ChatGPT, it will create a set of questions. The questions will populate over here. Hopefully that should be working right now behind the scenes. And once that's done, then the process will move on to use Document to create the little PDF with all the questions ready to go for you to just basically print the PDF out and give it out to the students. Simple as that. And here we go. We are ready. Let's take a look at our PDF. We've got our questions. Very nice. And essentially, we've got our questions here as well, so that you can basically, review which questions you want. Maybe you want to tailor them a little bit. But ultimately, as you saw, the process is extremely simple. All I have to do is just, load up my text, press process, and out the other end comes a tidy PDF that I can just print out, and I'm ready to go without thinking much, without doing much. So yeah. Let's take a look in our typical fashion at how the database works. Then we're going to take a look at setting up Doc Parser, which I promise you is super simple, and Document as well, which is again super straightforward. And even the Make automations are quite easy this time around. So yeah, let's take a look. All right, so database design, extremely straightforward. Literally, okay, we might have a lot of fields here. And by the way, we're using Airtable for this particular example because it's my favorite tool of choice. Essentially, we have a name here for the name of the document, which in fact, I believe the system is set up to extract it, believe it or not. So even if you just left that blank, the system would actually pull in the name because it will scan the document and it will understand what the name is. Using AI, you don't even have to put the real name in, but essentially it's a name field. Then we have our PDF attachment, which is our original text. Then we have our quiz PDF, which is, well, the quiz PDF that gets generated afterwards. And of course, we have the author, which again gets pulled in from the PDF itself. You don't have to put it in yourself. Then we have the process doc, which is just a basic checkbox. Then we have a long text field just for processing status updates, that sort of thing, so that you know that the system is working, nothing's broken. Then we have our extracted text, and this is literally the text that gets extracted from the document. That's basically it in terms of a database setup. Let's immediately jump in to Document. Let's do Doc Parser first, and we're going to jump into Document right. All right, so before we begin setting up our automation, what we need to do is we need to set up two things. We need to set up Doc Parser, which is the system that allows us to take your PDF, your original text PDF, and extrapolate all the text out of it so that we can basically do something with it later. So If you've never come across DocParser before, it's a beautiful little system that has existed since a very long time ago. I think like since 2015 or something like that, which is ages in terms of IT. But if you've never used it before, chances are that once you sign up initially, and there's a affiliate link down there below, so if you want to support the channel, you can hit that. But either way, as soon as you jump into DocParser for the first time, you'll probably be greeted with something like this, where you can create your own parser. Let me see if I can create one. Oh, okay. So let me just delete one. All you really have to do in order to set this whole thing up is just press on create new parser, start with a blank template, give this some kind of a, let's say test number 4, continue. Next, you have to upload a sample document. So let's say this PDF. Once it's uploaded, now we'll get the next screen where we can continue with setting up our parser. So here we need to choose text fixed position. And now what you see now my cursor has turned into this little cross. And what I need to do is just click on this and highlight the whole text and just drag it down. Drag it all the way down. And don't forget to click on use for following pages. So yeah, just make sure that that's clicked, press confirm. Then don't forget to press layout mode so that that is all shaped like this, and then just save parsing role. So now once I go back, where do I need to go? I need to exit the rules editor, and I just need to jump in back to my parser number 4. There we go. Got it. And we are basically ready to go. The one thing that's missing, which we will take care of shortly, is making sure that the connection between DocParser and Make is up to scratch. But yeah, now let's jump into Document and set that up. All right, so let's talk about Document. Now, again, if you haven't used Document before, there's an affiliate link down there in the description, so you can use that if you want to. But as soon as you're ready, jump into Document, create an account, and begin with a new template. I've already set up my template, and I'm going to guide you through how to basically set this up yourself. But for the intents and purposes of the automation, we're just going to be using my template over here that I've already set up. If you want to get started, just press on New Template, start with blank. And the most critical piece of this is, of course, making sure that the questions iterate nicely, right? We, like all the other stuff, is just nice and fancy. But the most difficult thing that most people will struggle with is probably the creation of this looping of questions. So to do that, again, extremely simple. Begin with a row, then you can throw in a column, and then within that column, let's add some text. Here we go. So what I want to do, again, I'm just going to copy my text that I've set up here, but it's really straightforward, right? We just have all of this text and some underscores just running through. And let me explain what I've just copied. So what I've copied is basically just some text, but then in here I have some variables, right? The QNO, which is short for question number. Then we have the question itself. And again, you see how we have these curly brackets to the left and to the right of the variable. It makes the system understand that this is a variable that needs to be filled. That is one thing. And then I go and I just basically bold this. So just Command B or Control B if you're on Windows, and then leave it as is. The last thing that we need to do in here to make this work is, I don't know if you noticed, but there's an extra little bit of text here. And that extra little bit of text, I've colored it white, but actually behind the scenes, and if I make this a little bit larger, you'll see that it says Q sort, so question sort. One thing that I forgot to mention is in my design for the questions within Airtable, I have an extra little table where I'm storing my questions. As the questions get backfilled into this from AI, we are also pushing through the question number. But there is an extra little formula field here that is basically a switch function where I'm using switch, then I'm mapping the question in, and then I have these pairs, right? 1A, B2, B3, C, and so forth. Because if we were to sort our questions based on this field, the question number, it doesn't really work nicely with document. So what I'm resorting to is using the letters as a means to a way to sort something, which usually works a lot better. What we need to do is we need to add that piece of text in. So here we go. I'm just going to add it in, and this is going to be our QSort, right? So QSort, we will keep it there for now, but ultimately what the next step is, we need to create a loop. So this is very easy to do. If you're just right here, click on this piece of text and then just press this arrow up, because we need to go up to the row level. How do you know that you're on the row level? Right now we're in text properties, and this arrow up takes you one parent up. So we want to select the parent, and this is the column. Now in your column level, and I want to get to the row level, which is even higher. So if I press this again, you see, now I'm in the row properties. It's really hard to distinguish in a document where you are in the sense of the process. So yeah, keep an eye on this particular thing changing once you press these arrows up and down. So now that I'm in the row properties, just press edit logic and go into the loop, and let's just say questions array, and then sort by, and we want to sort by that field. What was the field? QSort. Repeat loop. I need to put that in again. Questions array, sort by fields, QSort. Save. Perfect. That's all you have to do in terms of setting up the basics for document. Now, in typical cooking show fashion, here's one that I made earlier, but it's exactly the same. The only thing that is maybe different is the fact that I've added some extra text fields, but there's just text, right? I've added some blank columns between them so that they look, a little bit more separate. I've added an extra little field here with an extra variable, just the name of the story, and the little part that I've just shown you. So that's it in terms of setting up document. Let's jump into Make and see how to set up the whole automation. All right, so now we're back at Airtable, and the first thing that we need to set up is our trigger. If you've been following the channel for long enough, by now you probably know that I trigger stuff exactly in the same way every time. First of all, we need to focus on this little field, process doc. It must be a checkbox. Then let's jump into automations, and we have this automation right here called Document Data Extraction V2. You don't have to call it this name yourself, but if you want to follow along. So our trigger is in the table of documents. When process doc is checked, that's our trigger. Then we have a action that is run a script. And the script that we need to run is always the same, with the only exception that you have to change this little webhook URL here with one that Make gives you when you're setting up your Make scenario. Make sure that this webhook gets changed. Don't forget to add a variable over here, record_ID, with the value being the Airtable record ID from this little blue button over here. Just map the Airtable record ID. And that's it. Just press finish editing and turn your automation on. And that's it. You've done your triggering part. There's nothing else to do there. So now let's jump into Make. I've included the hack for part 1 and part 2 of this automation down in the description below so that you can download that if you want to. But if you want to follow along and build this together, let's do it. First of all, part 1 deals with sending the data, sending the PDF to DocParser. That is part 1. Part 2 deals with fetching the data from DocParser once it's ready and processing it, getting it to jump through a few hoops. But again, I promise you this is so easy. First of all, the webhook. This is the webhook that you need to copy and paste into your script as we've just discussed. Then, once that gets triggered, don't forget to map the record ID once it comes over from this webhook in here. If you've downloaded the files, this should be pre-mapped for you. Just don't forget to map everything else over here, the base, the table, and of course the record ID. Next, we want to get a file, and get a file we will. We basically need to get that PDF attachment URL from Airtable and just map this into this HTTP module. Then we have doc parser, where we want to upload our document to our said parser. We've just created parser number 4, but I'm just going to use parser number 3. It's the same thing, literally. Don't forget to make sure that this is mapped to the HTTP module over here. And the remote ID should be mapped as follows. The ID from Airtable, from module number 2, then a dash, and then the execution ID variable, which you can find over here inside of this little variable tab. And it's this one over here, execution ID. Basically, we want to create a unique license plate for that execution in doc parser so that it's easier then to kind of like troubleshoot and pinpoint and find that particular document within doc parser. Once that's done, press OK, and then we have module number 7, which basically simply updates the user. I'm just updating that same record in my documents. I'm mapping the document ID from module number 2, and I'm basically saying starting up, and then I'm just basically adding a little timestamp, GMT +0, so that the user knows that something's happening and nothing else. I'm not doing anything else, and that is basically part 1. Now let's jump into part 2. Part 2 is a little bit more interesting. Once you load up part 2, or you begin part 2, just create a webhook and copy this particular webhook to your clipboard. So copy, jump into doc parser, and then over here in the integrations, just scroll to the very bottom, custom integrations, simple webhook, paste this in your target URL, give it a name, something like make or something, and that's it. Save and test. I've already done mine on parser number 3, and it looks and works exactly the same way like I've just shown you. That's basically it in terms of how to set up that connection between make and doc parser. Essentially, what we've just done is we've set up a means to a way where once doc parser is ready with its processing, it will basically let make know that, hey dude, I'm ready. Here's the payload. Here's the finished product. Then we are using a doc parser module here called list parse documents. And we have to define the parser ID, which is test3 in our case, which is what I've set up earlier. Format object, last uploaded. And what we want is the remote ID, essentially, to be mapped in there. Limit 10 or whatever, doesn't really matter. And okay. Then we have a little filter. Basically, bundle order position equals to 1. So in other words, we want to make sure that only the first document ever gets processed. You shouldn't have problems with this, really, but I've just put this in there for, for better or worse. We have upload clean text. So I'm uploading into my record, which I'm basically using a little split get function here, split. So I'm splitting the remote ID by the dash, and then I'm getting the first part of that ID. So I'm basically getting this part, which is my document record ID, essentially. And then I am uploading that parse text from here, fixed text, extracted text. There you go. So from module 6, fixed text, that is my text that I get from doc parser. I'm giving the user a quick little update to say PDF processing complete so that they know that, doc parser actually did its job. And that's it. Press OK. Then we have a little bit of AI to help us out. Again, super easy. I'm using ChatGPT's transform a text to structured data to structured data. I'm not sure why it's to structured data. Weird. Anyway, so text to parse. It's our fixed text from module number 6 from doc parser. The prompt goes as follows. Analyze the above text that was extracted from a given children's story. I mean, you can play around with this. Then we have questions for pop-up quiz. Then we basically have outline that, like the description goes, outline 10 questions that you would ask a 7th grade class of students to answer about the provided text. And you can, of course, change this and play around with this, but this is my take on how to generate this. The data type should be array so that it basically creates a nice little list of questions. And the parameter is required. Next, we have name of story. The name of the story as the author named it. Data type is just text. Author name, the author of the story if mentioned in the text, just data type text. And again, all of these parameters are required. Then we have the final little stretch. Looks complicated, but believe me, it isn't. Next, we have our top path over here, which basically updates the record itself with a few things. So I'm using exactly the same split get combo for my record ID. And then I'm mapping in the name of the story over here. Then I'm mapping the author name, and then I'm giving it another processing update, just basically updating the timestamp to the already existing text. Then I have my next path, which basically says that pop quiz questions. So over here we have pop quiz questions, which is another field that gets created from the link between pop quiz questions and the document itself. Super straightforward to do. All I'm really saying here is that if the questions do not exist, then proceed. Proceed with what? Then I proceed with an iterator module, which iterates the array of questions for pop quiz that I get from my payload of ChatGPT, which is this thing over here, right? So once that's mapped in, all I have to do is just basically perform a search of pop quiz questions, question text, the value, limit to 1, and then I have a filter. So what this does is basically making sure that the same questions don't get mapped back in again. But you probably don't need this, because if you had the questions there already, it simply wouldn't run this path anyway. Better to be safe than sorry. So next, we have a create record module, which basically maps the document ID from module 43, which is like right here in the back. And then finally, the question order position, right? That gives us the position of the question, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have our question text, which is basically the thing that we want, right? So that's it. Press OK. And now you have your questions. Then we have another little module, and this is where document is going to be coming into play. So next, we update our process. Again, I don't think I need to do this particular part here. I've actually forgotten to change this. So let's say processing quiz PDF, something like that, so that our user knows that now we are creating our PDF for the questions. Next, we are iterating pop quiz questions that already exist from module 52. And then I am getting that record ID. Then I am creating an array aggregator. And this is very important. What you probably need to do when you're constructing this is create the aggregator, then add the document module, choose the template. And once you load up the template like so, just press OK, then jump into array aggregator. And over here in the target structure, instead of it saying custom by default, you will be able to see the questions array field. Remember questions array? Remember this thing that we've created here? Questions array? Remember that? It will pop up. And now you will be able to map your question number, your question text, and the sort from that pop quiz questions table. So that's basically that. Once you've done that particular bit, then in document, what you need to do is you need to make sure that it's mapped. So as soon as you set this up, it will look like this. But what you need to do is you need to press on map and map that array in. Also, name of the story, just the name from the original story. Once that is all mapped and ready to go, then the next module and final module is essentially, once again, we're updating our document with a little bit of data. We've got the remote ID, split get thing that I showed you earlier. Then I'm just uploading the file URL from document and the file name as well in the quiz PDF field of my documents table over here, basically. And that's it. And again, I'm giving a quick little update about PDF processing complete with a changed timestamp. That's essentially it in a nutshell. Let me know what your thoughts are on this particular workflow. I tried to keep it quite straightforward, nothing too complicated. And my plan is to turn this into a more dynamic form, maybe using Jotform in the future, because this is something that some of our clients really want. Essentially, they have a bunch of different documents that require specific variables from their clients. Let's say you are in insurance, right? And you have this big insurance contract. And within that insurance contract, there is a variable called name, right? we want to be able to create dynamic questionnaires, because if you have, 30 or 40 different documents, it is a big task to convert these documents into questionnaires. This is like a foundation, a basic, easy level, and hopefully I'll come up with the next video where we're going to discuss how to set this whole thing up to work, not just with a, PDF, but with a more dynamic data collection vehicle like Jotform. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.